I had been invited to do a scuba dive off of an oil rig. Now, for those of you who do not know, this is an incredible compliment because oil rigs are beautiful, but it's a complicated dive. It's not the simple one. You don't just put on your neoprene suit. You don't just put 20 pounds of air on your back to keep your lungs, from being crushed by the weight of the water. And of course, being able to breathe is useful too. Not only do your lungs get crushed if you don't have the air, your blood vessels do. But I'd been invited, and I was ready. I was excited. I joined my fellows. We got off the boat. We watched each other carefully, and we descended 20 feet, 30 feet, 50 feet, 90 feet. And then we looked at each other and we checked. We had air. We were all set. And we descended. No, they descended. I got vertigo. Suddenly, the entire world started to spin around me so fast. I'll swear I was staring at the same place. My eyes told me that. But my body said, I'm going around and around and around. But that's not the scary part. The scary part is I didn't know which way was up and which way was down. Now, what does a scuba diver do in a situation like that? They die. They either mistakenly go down in the wrong direction until they run out of that air we're talking about, or they go up so fast that the air in their lungs and the air in their blood explodes and they die. But my daddy didn't raise me to go out that easily. And so I said, I don't know which way is up, but the bubbles know. And so I followed the bubbles, not the big ones. They go up too fast. The small ones. I took the time to think, the small ones. And I followed them up. I stopped, gave the air in my body time to adjust, and made it safely to the top. I survived because I didn't look at what I didn't know. I looked at what I did know. Concentrate on the fact that you don't know which way is up and which way is down. Focus on that, and you're dead. But I changed the focus, and I found the solution, and I lived. When you face a problem, you concentrate on what's wrong. We're trained to look at a problem with laser-like precision. That's not where the answer is. That's where the problem is. Look sideways. That's where you'll find the answer. Change the focus. Find the solution. Now, I mentioned my daddy. I wasn't just being folksy. I've got a story of his which explains where I learned to think that way. My father was in college. He was on the swim team. Yeah, water runs in my family. And at this college party, big, hulky Moose, the champion of the State Wrestling Federation, decided to start teasing my father. Swimming isn't a real sport. It's nothing. You want to really be a man, wrestle. Because what you're doing, wimpy. And my father listed this man, trying to emasculate him, and smiled and said, okay, Moose, I'll take you on. And everybody at the party said, what are you, nuts? This is the champion of the State Wrestling Confederation. He will break you in half. And And my father smiled and said, I got this. Ray, you're crazy. He's a killer. He will destroy you. I got this. And so they went down to the gym. And then suddenly Moose went for the left and my father went to the right. And Moose said, what are you doing? The mats are this way. And my father smiled and said, your sport, my turf. The pool is this way. Because what my father remembered is that a wrestler starves every ounce of fat off of his body, so he's in a lower weight class. And how much buoyancy does that give him? None. So they got in the pool, and Moose went straight to the bottom. And he came up sputtering for breath, trying desperately to survive. And my father sort of danced around him, comfortably out of reach, until Moose was begging for help. When you're faced with a problem, when you're faced with something you don't know how to do, what do? Do you take the problem's turf and its sport and let it control you? Or do you look at the problem and say, your sport, my turf, this is what I know. This is how I'm going to not get broken by that champion of the state wrestling federation, or whatever the problem is. Change the focus, find the solution. Don't fight on his turf, fight on yours. Now, Father's story is a bit of a David and Goliath story. You know the story of David and Goliath, right? Did you ever really think about it, or did you say it's in the Bible? Let's think about it. The Philistine army and the Jewish army met on the plains. The Philistines were convinced they were going to destroy the Jewish army. But there was a tradition at that point that rather than everybody dying, we should be so smart. The Philistines sent out their champion, and the Jews were offered a chance to send out theirs. Well, sure enough, just like Moose and my father, the Philistines sent out a giant of a man, huge, tall. And they say he's a giant. For those of you who know wrestling, Andre the Giant, 6'7", it's enough to be a giant. Broad, big, not someone you want to face. With a sword that most men can't even lift. And a reach, it's huge. And the Jewish army sort of said, they couldn't find somebody who was brave enough. Until one small boy walked forward and said, I will do it. That small boy was David. He wasn't big. He wasn't powerful. He probably couldn't have lifted Goliath's sword. But he said, as my father had it, I got this. The king was so grateful. He said, you're willing to die for us? And David said, no, I'm willing to win for us. And the king said, I have the finest armor in the land. Let me give it to you. And David said, I don't need it. I got this. Because David was a slinger. He was a shepherd. And when the wolves threatened his flock, he'd take a rock and a sling, and he would kill the wolves and save his sheep. He went down onto the plain with a sling. And Goliath laughed. Ah, small boy, not even sword. What am I afraid of? And David reached over and picked up a rock and put it in his sling. And he started to spin the sling faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And he let loose. And that rock went straight forward, hitting Goliath right there in the forehead. And Goliath went down, and he didn't get up. Now, it's a Bible story. So many people assume that David won because he had the Lord's favor. I'm not going to tell you that he didn't have the Lord's favor. But David won because Goliath brought a knife to a gunfight. He didn't say, this is what the rules are. He has a sword, I'll have a sword. He said, I'm going to face him on my terms. He changed the focus. He found the solution. He said, sword fight, your sport. Sling, my turf. That's how you stay alive. That's how your army defeats their army. No matter how big the challenge, it's not a matter of big. It's a matter of smart. It's a matter of thinking. Now, if you'll forgive me, because I like to talk about my father, he's one of my heroes. I want to tell you a story about my father, another story. My father is the man who invented the barcode. This is a true story. He did. How did that happen, you ask? 10 seconds of brilliance. That's all. 10 seconds. My father walked from his office, went down the hallway, went past the office of a friend of his. That man is Frank Stites, a name you probably have never heard of and probably never will again. And he said, Frank, what are you doing for lunch? Frank said, I'm free. So while they sat down at lunch, my father said, so what are you working on? Well, railroad cars run on other companies' tracks. And the way you tell whose car is on your tracks is you write down the number on the side of the car. Pretty straightforward and simple. But it's not that simple because it's a union job. And it's a soft union job, nothing against unions, but it goes to the guys who are older or a little squinty-eyed. And at that point in their careers, they don't really care. So they get the numbers backwards or wrong. And it costs a fortune. So the National Railroad Association put out a bid for someone to find a better way, an electronic way to solve the problem. So what are you going to do? Well, we've got these colored strips. These wonderful colored strips we put on the side of the cars. And they have different colors. The different colors mean different things. And yes, in case you're wondering, this is the original barcode. This is where it started. And my father said, so how's it going? And Frank said, it's terrible. This goes by so fast that the colors blur. And I've tried everything. I've tried faster computers. I've tried better algorithms. I've tried wider stripes. It doesn't matter. It just goes by too fast and we can't stop it. My father paused for 10 seconds. Here's your solution. And read it with a mirror down at your own pace. And it doesn't matter if it goes this way. It doesn't blur. That is what started the Universal Product Code. My father and Frank Stites shared the patent. And the rest is history. The rest is on your bottles, your Wrigley's Juicy Fruit, your cans of dog food. And all because my father, instead of saying, well, it can't be solved, it's just going to be too fast, said, why don't you take control of the speed yourself? Now, I have one more story which I'm going to share with you guys before I leave. One more example, taking a situation, a problem, and solving it on your own. And I'm going to need the Jamesons to help me with this one. This is a story of a gentleman who was known for, let's say, behaving inappropriately with all of the ladies in town. And for the benefit of this story, I'm going to be that gentleman. Connie will be my lovely assistant who doesn't want me to kill. Because in this town, if a gentleman is sentenced to death for adultery, for example, he is given a chance. They put 2 slips of paper into a hat. One says live, and the other says die. Now, Tom is in charge of protecting his wife. So Tom will now write live or die, one on each of these. But we all know Tom is a very jealous man. And what he's going to do is write die on both of them. So whichever slip I pull, it's going to say die. Now, Connie, having seen him do this, is going to come up and whisper in my ear to tell me that no matter what slip I pull, I'm going to die. Connie, if you would. Just whisper, just let me know. Oh dear. Now, this is when any intelligent man would panic. But a really intelligent man would say, I'm going to change the focus. I'm going to find the solution. I'm not going to fight the game on his turf. I'm going to do it on mine. And so, as he makes me reach in, and I pull out my slip, knowing that whatever slip I pull is going to say die. But he didn't read it, says Tom. How do we know what it says? Well, I know it's the opposite of what's left. And that is my final example of changing the focus. Don't focus on what's in the hat, because you know that's going to kill you. Focus on what is going to be left. And that's the solution. People, as you go through life, don't let yourself be caught up in the blinders that are so easy. Don't look at the fact that you don't know up from down. Don't look at how big Moose or Goliath are, or how long the sword. Don't say, well, it's going to blur, it's going to blur. And definitely don't say, whatever I pull, it's going to kill me. Change your mindset, change the focus, find the solution, and you'll do very well. Now, Tom's still going to watch Connie like a hawk, but what can I do? Thank you, Tom.